Hey guys, and welcome back to another ProGuides Teamfight Tactics video. Today, we're going to be looking into patch 10.9, going through the interesting changes Riot made, and making some predictions on how our experts think the meta is going to shake out. In 10.9, we're not seeing any new heroes like in 10.8. Instead, we see a plethora of balance changes, with a clear focus towards comp diversity and variety. As a general trend, 6-piece comps are nerfed, and 2 and 3-piece are buffed or nerfed less relatively. Keep in mind that predictions made in this video are exactly that, predictions. They are subject to change, and we will definitely keep you updated in our mid-patch update. Feel free to share any comments below, giving us your feedback, especially if you have something new to add, or if you disagree with what we predicted. We are always happy to read them. Also, if anything is pulled from the original PvE changes, you can find the info in the comments as well, about what ended up not making it to the live servers. System changes. Okay, there are some system changes before we get to the juicy stuff. In the spirit of making the game less straightforward and more diverse, roll chances per level are changed. What this essentially does is it changes when you roll for each champion costs 3 stars. For example, you used to roll for 2 costs at level 5. Now, the chance remains at 35% for both levels 5 and 6, making leveling a bit more attractive, instead of being trapped at 5 to get that extra chance for 2 costs. In addition, the level to roll for 3 costs is still 7, but at both levels 6 and 7, the chance to get them is a bit lower. This change makes it a bit harder to go for reroll comps that rely on 3-starring their carries. It is still quite possible, but the devs are clearly trying to change direction from reroll comps being the absolute best option with these changes. Other small changes include the impossibility of no gold starts. You will always get a small gray orb now during the first 3 PvE rounds, which is great for early econ, eliminating the disadvantage for people who are not getting that extra income. You also cannot delete items anymore, as the game literally will not let you complete an action that would delete an item, like selling a champion or grabbing a loot orb. Trait changes. Let's start with the good news first, the buffs. There generally weren't many buffs to traits this patch, but Chrono got changed. But it's a buff, we promise. The attack speed buff ticks once at the start of combat, and gaining more Chrono units will reduce the time needed for it to tick again. At 6 Chrono, you gain 15% attack speed every 2 seconds. Starship got buffed from 20 mana to 40 mana per second. It is clear that the devs want Aurelion Sol to see play outside of Rebels, but also Rebels to see more play in general. This change really reduces Aurelion Sol's reliance on Seraphs, making room for other items on it. One of the biggest buffs this patch, Vanguard got buffed from 60 bonus in its 2-piece to whopping 125 armor. This makes early Poppies and Jace a lot stronger and relevant, even worthy item holders. Blade Masters see a QOL buff to their extra attack animations, which should make the trait a bit stronger. Another 2-piece buff comes to Brawlers, where the nerf they saw in 10.7 is reverted, and they gain 350 health instead of 300. This makes Brawlers an interesting transitional 2-piece, making frontlines much stronger. Infiltrator has one of the more interesting buffs, where the effect of refreshing their attack speed on kill also functions for the 2-piece, which opens up the field quite a bit, especially for the mech Infiltrator comp, where you could potentially run only 2 Infiltrators. The final trait buff comes for Protectors, increasing their 2-piece shield from 20 to 25% health. This actually makes the Protector spat a bit more attractive, but it's not a huge buff overall. Alright, that's it for buffs. Overall, you can see the trend that we spoke about before. Making 2-piece traits a bit more attractive to pave the way for more varied synergies is a clear direction the devs are taking, especially since they're nerfing a lot of the 4 and 6-piece traits. So let's take a look into those changes. Brawlers lose 50 health in their 4-piece trait, down to 650 from 700. Simple enough, hitting the frontline capability of Brawlers a little bit. Infiltrators 4 and 6-piece taking a small 5% nerf, again, not too big a hit. An interesting nerf is to Mech Pilot, where the 25 mana gained when they eject from the dying mech is no longer granted. It doesn't change a lot, since units ejecting from the mech were not particularly carry material, but it definitely hampers the mech comps a bit, with the mech also having 300 less base HP. In general, the devs are trying to take some power out of the mech and into the pilots. It should be noted that the devs mentioned this nerf might be bigger by the time the patch is live, so look in the comments for confirmation. Blasters see a rather impactful nerf, especially with on-hit items on them, because their 4-piece trait attacks 1 less champion. Blasters have seen a fair amount of play in 10.8 and are rather oppressive in the mid-game. This should put them down a bit without neutering the trait at all. Cybernetics are getting nerfed again. Only in their 6-piece though, as the 3-piece power level should remain the same. Sorcerers get nerfed across the board, but only by 5% spell power per trait. Dark Stars is seeing more nerfs, adding to the 10.8b hotfix patch last week, but only to their 3 and 6Ps. It is 5 AD and AP that gets removed from each, making it a substantial nerf if you include the hotfix. Valkyries find it a little harder to get their 100% crit chance, having to reduce their opponents to 40% before they crit them out of existence. Rebels got very small nerfs, only in their shield and not their percentage damage. Blademasters got a small nerf, essentially reverting the buff they got previously. Celestials heal a bit less, but only in their 4-piece and 6-piece, retaining Celestial 2-piece as one of the core plug-and-play parts of so many comps. And that's it for the trait balance changes. Don't worry, we have some predictions to make, and they are coming up at the end of the video. New galaxies. 2 new galaxies for this patch, following the trend we've seen so far. The first is the Treasure Trove Galaxy, where every single PvE monster drops a loot orb that can contain an item, champions, or gold. There are 2 main implications we found while playing this on PvE. You can get 2-star and even 3-star 1-cost champions, as well as 2-star 2-cost champions relatively fast, with the right amount of luck, even before PvP starts. The other implication is that 10 gold starts at stage 2-1 will be quite common in this galaxy. The other galaxy's Star Cluster, where champion carousels are 2-star champions, up to 3 cost. This is potentially explosive and can allow for a much more robust economy in games, where you don't have to roll too much to get that carry you want. To balance this, the second carousel, which naturally has 3-cost champions included, now only has 2 costs. Champion buffs and nerfs. The main buffs to champions went to 1 costs, either making their 3-star versions more desirable or buffing underused ones. The rest of the champions are more QOL, as well as bringing some power back to underused units. Let's start with the 1 costs. 1 costs. Fiora got a small buff to her 3-star form Stun, upping it to 3 whole seconds. Graves got a more streamlined duration to his ult, making it a 4-second blind across the board. Kha'Zix got buffs to his ultimate across the board, probably a buff to Void, as well as 2 infiltrator combos. Leona is now unkillable at 3-star. Yep, unkillable. Malphite with HP items at 3-star will now have a lot of HP, so if you want to invest in a strong brawler frontline, he might be your guy. Twisted Fate's 3-star form gets a really small buff, still generally bad though. Ziggs gets rather huge damage boosts to his ultimate across the board, making him a strong unit early, especially if you can give him a 2 sorcerer bonus early. 2 costs. Annie gets a big HP boost, becoming an even better tank for sorcerer comps along with her previous armor buffs. Lucian will stop annoying us with stopping attacks after his ult target dying. He will now keep using his spell at nearest target. This is technically QOL, but still a buff in our opinion. Rakan RFC bug is fixed, and he can dash to the end of the platform now instead of his ult bugging out. Sona is getting a nerf, only cleansing stuns now, but her heal is increased across the board. Yasuo becomes a less straightforward champion. Yasuo positioning matters now, because he will not instantly attack 3-item champions, but farthest enemy within 3 hexes. This is probably a nerf, since Yasuo is often part of Rebel comps, where positioning is rather set. 3 costs. Master Yi gets a buff on his healing in 1 and 2-star form, but nerf to his healing at 3-star form. This makes Yi a bit easier to use, without having to 3-star him early in the game to have any chance to win. Rumble gets a relatively big buff to his damage, being the only mech pilot who wasn't buffed last patch. As he already is the usual target for mech items, he should even more so be that target now, with his ult doing so much damage at 3-star. 4 costs. It's only Jinx getting a small buff in her 1 and 2-star rocket damage. As Jinx remains the most underperforming 4 costs in the game, devs admitted to probably buffing her more in the future. 5 costs. Aurelion Sol's mana changes so that every 3 seconds he shoots ships, but now does not require Seraphs or is even good with the item. As such, you don't need to put that item on him to be viable and can experiment with other items as well. Gangplank casts more often now with the faster impact upgrade being instant. Xerath got small nerfs in his 1-star and 2-star form, small nerf to keep him in line, but shouldn't change much about his popularity. Item changes. We only had 1 item change in 10.9. Let's take a look. Quicksilver Sash is getting a well-deserved nerf that still makes it a strong addition to your item roster. Its duration goes down from 15 seconds to 10, granting that it still is a strong anti-Zephyr/Blitzcrank item, but those Master Yis will be CCable, hopefully before they kill your entire team. Predictions. General gameplay predictions. We think the game will shift away from reroll comps a bit, as it already has started doing with 10.8b. The aforementioned roll chance changes will impact the leveling pace at the beginning of the game, as well as hit the reroll comps a fair bit. Expect people to level up faster in your games in the early game, as unit strength, especially due to last patch's player damage changes, will become increasingly important. The new galaxies, especially Treasure Trove, are quite fun. In Treasure, you get an abundance of resources, and it really allows for skill expression, unlike other galaxies like Super Dense or Lilac. Champion predictions. Some of the one costs got buffed, but the only ones we think will be used more are Ziggs and Kha'Zix, both in the early game as well as in later comps. Gangplank and Aurelion Sol should come back to the game after their 2-patch hiatus since them being nerfed to the ground after 10.6. Expect to see them in your game since they can fit in various comps due to their increase in power. You can use Aurelion Sol in Rebel comps now, or in Sorcerers as well. Similarly for GP, you can use him as that Demolitionist along with buffed Rumble or in Rebel comps with Ziggs. Comp predictions. Chrono Ash is the new hotness in PvE, and it is really fun. You build the usual Ash items, Shojin's, Hurricane, and even Guinsoo's on her, maybe with one defensive item you usually reserved for other carries until now. Then you put in 6 Chronos and watch the arrows fly. Another really interesting comp is Void Brawler Infiltrators. Void Brawlers had a fatal flaw, it being its reliance to a single carry, namely Vel'Koz. With Kha'Zix's buffs, he is now totally worth 3-starring and does amazing damage with Void. Build a rapid-fire cannon on him and watch him go crazy with the new Reset on Kill Infiltrator attack speed. You still build mage items on Vel'Koz and tank items on Sho'Gath. Finally, we might see a return of the Space Pirates. The recent Space Jam comp in 10.8 has made some waves, but with Gangplank actually being a bit more viable, Space Pirates could become a bit more of a viable and not only for fun comp. Good luck getting those 30 items. Thanks for tuning in. Let us know which comp you think will dominate in 10.9. If you want to get better at TFT, visit www.ProGuides.com where you can find challenger coaches who will help you reach your dream rank. Thanks again for watching. My name is Dan. You can find me everywhere on all social platforms at DanielLammerman. We'll see you guys in the next video.